Everything you're about to hear is just my assessment. It's my opinion and not to be taken as fact.
A condemning assessment of Joni Lamb's leadership and lack of accountability. In light of the controversies surrounding Joni Lamb and the Daystar television network, audio leaks, recent interviews, and her December 3, 2024, public address reveal a glaring absence of accountability in her leadership. Instead of reflecting on her actions, acknowledging mistakes, or outlining steps to improve, Joni has consistently presented herself as infallible. This approach undermines her credibility, alienates her audience, and contradicts the values of humility and repentance central to Christian leadership. Below is a detailed critique of her behavior, highlighting the troubling implications of her refusal to take accountability and the damage this has caused to her legacy, family, and ministry. First, absence of accountability, a pattern of deflection. The persistent victim narrative. Joni Lamb's public statements have consistently framed her as the victim of unjust attacks, rather than a leader willing to accept responsibility for her decisions. By positioning herself as a target of malicious criticism, she deflects attention from legitimate concerns raised by her family and others within the ministry. Dismissal of criticism. In her December 3 address, Joni referred to critics as low-level bloggers and portrayed their concerns as baseless attacks on her character. This rhetoric diminishes the seriousness of the allegations and shifts focus away from her own actions. Family conflict framed as betrayal. Joni's portrayal of Jonathan and Susie Lamb as misguided or disloyal further highlights her unwillingness to engage with their grievances in good faith. By framing familial concerns as personal betrayals, she avoids addressing their substantive criticisms of her leadership. B. No acknowledgement of mistakes. At no point in her interviews or public addresses has Joni Lamb admitted to any missteps or shortcomings. Whether discussing her controversial marriage to Doug Weiss, the handling of abuse allegations involving her granddaughter, or the broader leadership conflicts within Daystar, Joni has steadfastly maintained her innocence. Contradictory actions. While presenting herself as a victim of circumstances beyond her control, Joni continues to assert her authority as Daystar's president, creating a contradictory image of a leader who claims responsibility only for her successes while denying accountability for her failures. Missed opportunities for growth. Joni's failure to reflect on areas where she could improve suggests a lack of introspection. This inability to grow as a leader undermines the trust and respect of her audience. 2. Spiritual manipulation and claims of infallibility. A. The voice of God assertion. One of the most troubling aspects of Joni Lamb's leadership is her apparent claim to be the voice of God within Daystar. This assertion, echoed in audio leaks and criticized by Marcus Rogers in his December 4 video, elevates her decisions above reproach and discourages accountability. Silencing dissent. By framing opposition as rebellion against divine authority, Joni has created an environment where criticism is equated with spiritual disobedience. This dynamic stifles honest dialogue and fosters a culture of fear and submission. Biblical contradiction. The Bible emphasizes humility and the fallibility of human leaders. Even figures like King David, described as a man after God's own heart, openly repented for their sins. Psalm 51. Joni's refusal to acknowledge her flaws runs counter to this biblical model. B. Control over family and ministry. Audio leaks reveal a pattern of coercion within Daystar's leadership, including the alleged threat by Tom Callender to remove Jonathan Lamb from his position if he refused to sign an NDA. Joni's tacit approval of such tactics suggests a willingness to prioritize control over ethical leadership. Submission demanded, not earned. Joni's repeated demands for submission from her family, as described by Jonathan and Susie Lamb, reflect an authoritarian style of leadership that leaves no room for constructive criticism or shared decision-making. Cult-like dynamics. The expectation that family members suppress their convictions to align with Joni's decisions mirrors the cult-like tendencies Marcus Rogers and others have criticized. Third impact on family relationships. Fractured trust. Joni's leadership decisions have caused significant damage to her family relationships, particularly with her son Jonathan and daughter-in-law Susie. Their accounts reveal a pattern of dismissal and gaslighting that has eroded trust within the Lamb family. Dismissal of Jonathan and Susie's concerns. Whether addressing their opposition to her marriage to Doug Weiss or their advocacy for justice in the abuse allegations involving their daughter, Joni has consistently invalidated Jonathan and Susie's perspectives. Isolation through legal tactics. The use of NDAs and cease and desist letters to silence dissent within the family further underscores Joni's prioritization of institutional control over familial unity. B. Failure to reconcile. Despite opportunities to seek reconciliation, Joni has chosen to double down on her narrative of infallibility. Her refusal to engage with her family's concerns in a meaningful way suggests an unwillingness to prioritize healing and restoration. Missed opportunities for repentance. Genuine reconciliation requires humility and a willingness to admit wrongdoing. Joni's avoidance of these steps has deepened the rift within her family and tarnished her legacy. Fourth, damage to Daystar's credibility. A. Loss of public trust. The controversies surrounding Joni Lamb have significantly damaged Daystar's reputation. Allegations of spiritual manipulation, mishandling abuse claims, and prioritizing financial interests over ethical leadership have eroded public trust in the ministry. Alienation of supporters. Many of Daystar's viewers and supporters are disillusioned by Joni's refusal to take accountability. Her failure to address these concerns transparently has alienated those who once admired her leadership. Financial and spiritual implications. As trust diminishes, so does the ministry's ability to fulfill its mission. Joni's actions risk undermining the very foundation of Daystar's work. B. Institutional weakness. The lack of accountability within Daystar's leadership reflects broader systemic issues. Joni's control over the organization has created a culture where ethical concerns are dismissed and loyalty to leadership is prioritized over transparency and integrity. Need for structural reform. Daystar's credibility can only be restored through systemic changes, including independent oversight and a commitment to biblical accountability. Resistance to change. Joni's resistance to these reforms perpetuates the cycle of dysfunction within the ministry. 5. Biblical principles for leadership. Humility as a hallmark of leadership. The Bible repeatedly emphasizes the importance of humility in leadership. Proverbs 11:2 states, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom." Joni's unwillingness to acknowledge her mistakes reflects a lack of this essential quality. Contrast with biblical leaders. Leaders like Moses, David, and Peter openly admitted their failings and sought God's forgiveness. Joni's refusal to do the same sets a dangerous precedent for Christian leadership. Opportunity for redemption. Acknowledging her mistakes could pave the way for healing and restoration, both within her family and the broader Daystar community. B. Accountability to God and others. Christian leaders are called to be accountable, not only to God, but also to their communities. Hebrews 13:17 reminds leaders that they must give an account for their actions. Joni's resistance to accountability undermines her witness and compromises her leadership. Conclusion. The cost of infallibility. Joni Lamb's refusal to take accountability for her actions has caused significant harm to her family, her ministry, and her legacy. By presenting herself as infallible, she has alienated those closest to her, damaged Daystar's credibility, and failed to embody the humility and integrity required of a Christian leader. Her persistent deflection and manipulation stand in stark contrast to biblical principles of repentance and accountability. If Joni hopes to restore her reputation and rebuild trust, she must acknowledge her mistakes, seek reconciliation with her family, and commit to systemic reforms within Daystar. Until then, her legacy will remain overshadowed by controversy, and her leadership will serve as a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked ambition and spiritual manipulation.